Hello YouTube and welcome to the next route learning video. On today's video we're going to be revisiting Germany and I'm going to be driving an intercity service in a BR101 electric locomotive between Köln and Koblenz on the Köln to Koblenz route, which is a distance of around 93.2 kilometers. Along the way we will be calling at Bonn, Remagen, Andernach and finally Koblenz. I would just like to take this opportunity at this point to apologise if I get any of the pronunciations wrong on the places that we pass through on this route. Unfortunately, not speaking German myself, I'm having to guess with some of these pronunciations, though I have managed to find some online. So if I do get any wrong and you're aware of the correct pronunciation, then please do let me know in the comments. The scenario that I'm using for this video is one which I found on Steam Workshop called MHIC119 Köln HBF to Koblenz HBF. And indeed we're following the real-life timetable of train IC119, which is the service from Münster to Innsbruck in Austria. The reason why I've chosen this scenario is because I really liked the variety of AI, which I just felt helps to make the journey a lot more realistic, and it certainly looks a lot better than the default scenarios which come with this route. I have made one slight change though, and that's because the BR101 which was used didn't seem to want to respond when I was using the PZB system, so I've actually swapped that out for the BR101 which comes with the Munich to Augsburg route. The DB Class 101 electric locomotive was built by Adtranz between 1996 and 1999, with a total of 145 of these locomotives produced. The length of each loco is 19.1 metres, which is 62 feet 8 inches, and the weight of each locomotive is 83 tonnes. They run on the 15 kilovolt overhead AC electric system, which is found throughout Germany, and the locomotives have a maximum speed of 220 kilometers per hour, which is around 137 miles per hour. However, on this journey today, we won't be able to get above 160 kilometers per hour, which is 100 miles per hour, due to the speed limit of the route. The locomotive has a power output of 8,583 horsepower, with a maximum tractive effort of 300 kilonewtons. Once in the cab of the BR101, there's a few things that I need to do to set up the locomotive ready for departure, but I would just like to point out at this point that you may have already noticed the headlights are already switched on, and the reason for this is because Köln is not the starting point of this service, but Münster was the starting point, so we're just at an intermediate stop here, and as a result of that, when taking over a train, the headlights would certainly already be switched on. The first thing that I'm now going to do to set up the locomotive is put the reversing handle into the forward position. So you can see the reversing handle in front of us now in the middle of the screen. And if I now press the W key, you can see that that has now moved forward into the forward position. The next thing that I'm going to do is set up the safety systems on the locomotive. I would just like to point out at this point that I have already made a German signalling guide, which goes into a lot of detail on how to operate the signalling and safety systems on German locomotives. So I'm not going to go into so much detail in this video, however I will post a link to the German signalling guide in the description of this video. So the first thing I'm now going to do is press Ctrl and numpad enter to turn on the PZB signalling system, and once I've done that you'll now see that the 85 lamp in front of us has illuminated, which indicates that the PZB system is now turned on. The next thing I'm going to do is press Shift and numpad enter, and that will turn on the CIFA safety system, so you're going to see the white CIFA light now go out. That indicates that the CIFA system is now switched on. So when the train is moving, I believe it's every 30 seconds or so, the CIFA light will come on for a few seconds, and then if you haven't pressed numpad enter to reset it, you will then get an audible warning which says CIFA, and if you still don't reset it within about 2 or 3 seconds, then the emergency brakes will be applied. The gauge on the right of the cab here is the speedometer, which is measured in kilometers per hour, and what I'm now going to do is set up the AFB system, which is a form of cruise control. So you can see a bug on the outside of the speedometer which is white with a red bottom to it, and that is the AFB indicator, and whatever speed that is pointing at, the train then will not go faster than that speed. So as the current speed limit is 40 kilometers per hour, I've set the AFB system to 40. You can also see there's a digital speed readout there, indicating the speed that I've set it to. Now this will prevent the train from going above 40 kilometers per hour, and should hold us at around 37 to 38 kilometers per hour. To the right of the cab you can see the brake handles, which are just to the bottom of the screen here, so if I apply the brakes you'll see that the handles move towards us, and if I release the brakes then the handles are being pushed away from us. If you now look at the gauge at the top of the cab there which says bar in it, that is the main brake cylinder gauge, which indicates how hard the brakes are applied. So the harder I apply the brakes, the higher that number reads, and as I release the brakes that number then falls towards 0. Just to the right of the cab here, the switch on the very right is the horn control, which I'll just demonstrate now. And now if we look over to the left-hand side of the cab, we've got two more important handles here. The one on the left is the AFB control, so when you change the speed set, you're actually moving this handle up and down. I just don't normally look at that handle when I'm doing it. And the handle to the right of the AFB handle is the main throttle control. And indeed with the throttle control we also have an ammeter on this locomotive. So if you look at the computer screen in front of us, you can see there's two gauges there, one which says KV, which has currently got a blue line going up to number 16. Now that's indicating how much power we're currently getting from the overhead catenary. However, if you look at the gauge to the right of that with an A on it, that's actually the ammeter. So the higher up the bar is pointing in that gauge, the more power that we're currently applying to the locomotive. And when that is pointing at 0, that means that we're currently in idle and we're applying no power at all. Now that we've gone through the cab controls, I'm just going to pan to some camera shots of trains arriving and departing here at Köln, before departing and heading off towards Koblenz. Departing Köln, the starting speed limit is 40 km per hour, and we've got around 34 km to go to our first stop, which is Bonn. So I'm gradually accelerating up towards 40 km per hour in a low power setting. Indeed, with this locomotive I find that if you use a high power setting at low speeds, it just feels like you're giving too much power, and I think it's actually driving quite unrealistically. You can see on the dashboard in front of us that the 70 and 85 lamps are illuminating alternately, which means that we're currently under restricted monitoring, and we enter restricted monitoring if we've travelled below 10 km per hour for a certain amount of time, and also when starting from the first station on a journey within Train Simulator. While under restricted monitoring we can't go above 45 km per hour or the emergency brakes will be applied. We have just passed a 70 km/h speed board, and we can accelerate towards 70 on this next point, just coming up where we turn to the right. As you can see, the 70 and 85 lamps have stopped illuminating alternately now, and the 85 lamp is illuminated solidly, indicating that we can now proceed up to the speed limit. So I cut the I cut the throttle down for a moment before increasing the AFB setting, just to prevent the train from jolting and pulling away too quickly if you increase the AFB setting while you've got the throttle in a power setting. The speed limit has now gone up to 80 km/h, and we can accelerate towards that as we reach the gantry on the right hand side. We're just passing that now, so I'm just going to cut the power down once again, go up to 80 on the AFB setting and increase the power to bring us up towards 80 km/h. We're now on a very long, sharp, sweeping left-hand curve, and we're passing a very large depot on the left-hand side. The speed limits here is now going up to 90 km/h. Once again, I'm going to cut the power back and now increase the AFB setting. We can accelerate towards 90 as we enter this right-hand curve here. However, I don't need to give us much power at this point because we're now on a steep downhill gradient towards the next station we pass through, and indeed the gradient won't level until we reach that next station. We're now passing Köln West Station. The gradient here has now levelled out, and we've now got 1.6 kilometres, which is 1 mile, to go to the next speed change, which is a reduction in the speed limit down to 80 km/h. So the next thing I'm looking out for along here is the warning board for the upcoming 80 km/h speed limit. At that point, I'm then going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. And then at the next signal after that 80 warning board, I will then just use light braking to ensure that we've slowed down in time. We're passing the 80 km/h warning board now, so I've now got the power in idle, and I'm looking out for the next signal coming up ahead, ready to apply the brakes. Just reached the next signal now, so I'm just going to use one brake setting, so step 1 of braking. And we're now down to just below 80 km/h. At this point I'm just going to reduce the AFB setting by 1 and now just apply a little bit of power to ensure that we don't slow down too much. We're now passing through Köln Süd Station. Just after passing through Köln Süd Station, we're now going to start on another steep downhill gradient on this right-hand curve here. After we've passed around this right-hand curve, the speed limit will then be going up, initially to 140 km/h, and then almost immediately after that, the speed limit will be increasing to 160 km/h, which is 100 miles per hour, and the maximum speed limit for this journey today. We're now passing the 140 km/h speed board, and we can accelerate towards that once we reach the 160 km/h speed board coming up just here. So we've just reached that now. I'm cutting the power off, now increasing the AFB setting and increasing the power to accelerate up towards 160 km/h. At this point I can now just gradually bring the power handle up to full power, as we're now travelling at a high enough speed to be able to use full power on the throttle. I would just like to take this opportunity to apologise for not having been able to get up many videos recently. I think it's about 2 weeks since the last video that I made. I've just been really busy with university. In fact, I had 4 assignments to write up, which were all due within the space of a week, which was quite crazy, but I managed to get them all done, and I've got the results back from all of them now, which aren't too bad. I think I could have done better on a couple of them, but certainly I'm fairly pleased with my results so far as a first-year philosophy student. And I am finding philosophy, although it's interesting, to be a lot more technically challenging than maybe I first realised when I signed up for the course. I'm very glad that I did sign up though, because I'm learning an awful lot, and I can see how a lot of these skills which you use in philosophy can be applied to many situations you will find yourself in everyday life, such as critical thinking skills, reasoning skills, argumentative skills, and so on. I'd just like to apologise for the lag at this end of the route on this video. As we get towards the middle of the route, the lag will become less prominent, but I did notice, even when practising, that around Köln there is a bit of lag present, unfortunately. So this route is actually fairly demanding, I think, on most computer systems in this area. We're now passing through Karlsruhe station. I have already planned out the next video I'm going to be making, and I've already learned the route for it, so I'm hoping to get that done fairly quickly. And that's going to be a journey on the North Jersey coastline, which is currently the most requested US route that I take a look at. So I'm going to be driving a short journey on the diesel-only section out of Bay Head. I'm just going to be driving along the diesel-only section until we reach the electrified section, where that particular journey will end. Though I am ultimately planning on covering the whole route, it's going to be in more than one part when I do so. I have also started rewriting the script for the Settle to Carlisle route guide. Unfortunately, I lost it when getting the new computer back in September. I'd almost completed the route guide script. Unfortunately, when getting the new computer, I had a few teething troubles with it, and as a result I had to reinstall Windows more than once, before in the end I actually discovered that my problem was a faulty SATA cable to my hard drive. As a result of that, I forgot to back up some files and lost the script, so I have now started rewriting it. I'm about halfway through, and I'm hoping to get that done quite soon, but I'm not sure exactly when that will be online. We're now passing through Brühl station, and we've got 17.5 kilometers to go at this point to our stop. I do actually have a long Christmas holiday coming up from university. The term this year finishes on the 11th of December, and as I have no exams in the winter period as a first year student, it means that teaching doesn't restart until the 1st of February, so I've actually got no studying to do and no need to go into university for around 6 or 7 weeks. As a result of that, and now that I'm working part-time as well, I'm going to try and commit as much time as possible to getting new videos onto this channel, with a particular focus on route guides, train guides and tutorial videos, to really add some more variety to the channel as a whole. though I will still make some route learning videos during that time. I definitely want to focus on other types of videos more, and I may even consider doing my first video in a different game, so maybe a railway strategy game or something, again to start adding some more variety to this channel. We're now passing Seckton station. The next station that we pass through will be the last station before our stop at Bonn, and that station will be 6.3 kilometers away from our stop. So after that I then need to be keeping an eye out on the signals, because we are going to have a cautionary signal warning us of an upcoming 60 km/h speed limit at the following signal. However, one of the things that I've noticed with the PZB system is that when you acknowledge the warning signal for the speed limit reduction and you brake, even if you were to brake so that you would slow down in time before the next signal, the system sometimes still seems to think that you won't slow down in time, so triggers the emergency brakes anyway. So I've got to be very careful with this, and I'm probably going to slow down for the 60 km/h speed limit too early, just to ensure that I don't get an emergency brake application rather than too late and have to suffer with that problem. We're now passing through Reisdorf station, so at this point we now have 6.3 kilometers to go to Bonn. At this bridge we're now crossing over, we've now got 4 kilometers to go, and I believe that it's the signal after the next one where we're going to have the warning for the upcoming 60 km/h speed restriction. And so it should now be the next signal. I'm just trying to keep an eye out ahead. It doesn't look like the signal ahead is green, though I can't see it too clearly. As we get closer I'll be able to see it better. Now I can clearly see that it's not, so at this point I'm now going to shut off the power. I'm going to get ready to acknowledge the PZB system with the page down key, and then I'm going to brake immediately. So I'm now braking into step 4 here, and that should be enough brake force to slow us down in time, and hopefully the penalty brake application won't be triggered here. I've now reduced the braking as we're getting towards 60 kilometers per hour, and now that we're doing 60, I've released the braking completely. You can now see the signal just ahead where the speed restriction comes into force. At this point, I'm now going to reduce the AFB setting to 60 kilometers per hour, just to ensure that I don't break that speed limit. You can now see Bonn station coming up just ahead. At this point, I've now idled the power just to allow the train to coast, and I'm going to apply the brakes so we enter the platform at no faster than 50 kilometers per hour, which is just over 30 miles per hour. I wasn't sure of the exact stopping points here at Bonn, so I'm just going to aim to stop around the area of the end of the platform roof. So here we are, arrival at Bonn. Departing Bonn, the starting speed limit is 100 kilometers per hour, so I've just increased the AFB setting to 100, and we've got around 21 kilometers to go to our next stop, which is Remagen. So I'm now accelerating towards 100 kilometers per hour in a medium power setting, and I'm just going to stay in that medium setting now, so that we don't quite reach 100 kilometers per hour before we reach the next speed limit board, which signifies an increase in the speed limit to 160 kilometers per hour. So I just don't want to have to cut the power back if I can help it before we've passed the 160 kilometer per hour speed board. So we've just now reached the 160 speed board. We can accelerate towards that just after the crossing that we've just crossed now. So I've now increased the speed set. I'm now also increasing the power to bring our speed up a lot quicker. I would just like to say that having now driven through this route several times when practicing for this video, this route has now become my joint favourite German route along with the Hamburg to Hanover route. I really like the Hamburg to Hanover route because of the length as much as how well it's constructed. It's the only German route that we have that reaches to over 100 miles, and it's a route that I certainly thoroughly enjoy driving. On this route, I just really like the way it's put together, and very shortly we're going to be heading into, well, I would say the most scenic section of the route as we run alongside the River Rhine, which you can clearly see, through a very hilly area, and I just think the scenery is really beautiful, and I particularly enjoy driving this section between Bonn and Remagen. We're now passing through Bonn Bad Godesberg station. Something else that's happening in the long Christmas holiday period in December and January is that I am going away for 5 days to Hungary. I'm going to be staying in Budapest from the 10th to the 15th of January. And while I'm in Hungary, I'm hoping to really get a glimpse of the railways there and hopefully ride on some trains too. So I'd like to try and get some video footage together of the various trains which I see, and probably just put together a little video montage to put on this channel. So yeah, watch this space. We're now passing through Bonn Melon station. At the start of this 4-track section just here, we've now got 1.4 kilometers to go to an upcoming 100 km/h speed restriction. So I'm now looking out for the 100 warning, which we're just about to pass now. So I've now cut the power and I'm just applying the brakes up to step 3, and that should be enough braking to bring our speed down in time. We're now down to 100 km/h, and I'm now going to reduce the AFB setting also to 100 km/h. As always, just to ensure we don't break the speed limit, and now I'm just going to use a low power setting to ensure that we hold at around this speed. Body of water that you can now see on the left hand side is indeed the River Rhine. We're now passing through Roland Sec station, and at this point we've got 7 kilometers to go to our stop. With the long, sharp and sweeping curves that we have on this section of the route, you can clearly see why the speed limit is as low as it is along here, though shortly after passing through the next station, the speed limit will be going up to 120 km/h, which is 75 miles per hour. We're now passing Oberwinter station. EZB is locked whilst the train is moving. I've had that pop up a few times on this route with this loco. I'm not quite sure why, because I'm not actually trying to do anything with the PZB system, so I'm just going to put it down to a likely bug with Train Simulator. The speed limit here is now going up to 120 km per hour, so I've just cut the power handle for a moment, increase the AFB setting. Now I'm increasing the power to bring us up towards 120 km per hour. The next landmark that I'm looking out for is the signal just after kilometre post 51.8. So you can see on the overhead gantries here that every 200 metres there is a kilometre post indicating how far we are from Köln. And so at the signal just after kilometre post 51.8, we've then got 1 kilometre to go to our stop. So at that point I'm then going to idle the power and apply the brakes just after the signal. So it's going to be the next signal coming up now, and we certainly want to have the brakes on before we reach the overbridge after that signal. At this point I'm now idling the power, ready to apply the brakes. And at this next gantry now, I'm now applying the brakes, so I've initially gone up to step 3, which I'm hoping should be enough braking to bring our speed down in time. You can now see Remagen station just coming up. So here at Remagen I'm aiming to stop at the H sign, which is around 2/3 of the way along the platform, shortly after the platform roof. At this point I'm now applying the brakes more to ensure that we are slowing down quick enough. You can now see the H sign coming up on the right hand side, so I'm just going to keep adjusting the brakes at this point to ensure that I do slow down and stop at the right point. So here we are, arrival at Remagen. Departing at Remagen, the starting speed limit is 120 km per hour, though it is very shortly going up to 160 km per hour, and we've got around 20.5 km to go to the next stop, which is Andernach. We're now reaching the 160 km per hour speedboard, so I'm just going to increase the speed set straight up to 160. The rear of the train has already passed the board before we even reached the previous speed limit of 120 km per hour, and at this point I've now gone into full power so that we can accelerate towards the speed limit as quickly as possible. We're now passing Sinzig station and we've got 16.7 kilometers to go to Andernach. I believe that the barriers that are now up on each side of the track are actually noise abatement barriers, so they're just trying to reduce noise pollution in the surrounding area. We're now passing Bad Breisig station and we've now got 11 kilometers to go to Andernach. At the next station we pass through, we've then got 0.8 kilometers to go to an upcoming 140 km/h speed limit, so I am going to apply the brakes lightly as we pass through the next station. We're now passing Brohl station with 0.8 kilometers to go to the upcoming 140 km/h speed limit. I do now have the brakes on, just at present on step 1, which I think should be enough brake force to bring our speed down to 140 in time for the speed restriction. Indeed, we're now down to 140 km/h, so I've reset the AFB at 140 and increased the power slightly. We're now entering the 140 km/h speed zone with 6.9 kilometers to go to our stop. At the next station, we've then got 1.2 kilometers to go to an upcoming 110 km/h speed limit. So I'm going to apply the brakes now lightly, initially in a step 1 application, increasing to step 2 as required. In fact, I think that this step 1 brake application should be enough to bring our speed down in time, as we are now down to 110 km per hour. I'm releasing the brakes at this point and reducing the AFB setting. Now I'm just going to give us a small amount of power to ensure that we don't lose any speed. We've just entered the 110 km per hour speed zone, 3.1 kilometers from our stop. The speed limit will shortly be going up to 130 km per hour, 1.3 kilometers from our stop. However, I see little point in accelerating because that's only 3/4 of a mile to go. So at that point we really need to be starting to think about braking. So I'm looking out for the increase in the speed limit, and then after the speed limit has increased, I'm going to idle the power at the next signal after that speed board, and then brake just before the following point. So the speed limit has now gone back up to 130 km per hour, though as I said I'm not going to accelerate here. I am going to idle the power as we reach this signal just here, and then I'm going to apply the brakes just before the next point which we cross. So here's the point now. Gone straight into a step 4 brake application, which I will reduce as we get closer. So we're now entering the platform at just above 30 miles per hour, which is a good speed to be entering the platform at. I'm just going to reduce the braking slightly and now increase once again. One of the things that I have noticed with the BR101 is that at low speeds the brakes seem quite ineffective. I'm not sure whether that's something that would happen in real life, but certainly in Train Simulator I find it harder to stop at lower speeds, so I'm aiming to stop by this overhead gantry just here, which is after the platform roof on the right hand side. So here we are, arrival at Andernach. Departing Andernach, the starting speed limit is 130 km per hour, and so I'm now increasing the speed set on the AFB system to 130, and we've got around 18 km to go to our next and final stop, which is Koblenz. So I'm just now going to gradually bring our speed up to 130 km per hour, and then once we've reached 130, we'll then have a short distance to go before a warning of a speed reduction down to 120 km per hour, which is 1 kilometer from the speed limit itself. We're now doing around 130 km per hour, so I'm now just looking out for the 120 warning as we pass the warning board, and then going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. Then I'm just going to apply the brakes very lightly as we reach the next signal, and that should bring our speed down about right. So we've just passed the 120 warning now, and I've idled the power. We're We're now coming up on the next signal, so I'm going to make a step 1 brake application now, just to ensure that we've slowed down in time. We are now down to 120 km per hour, so I'm just changing the AFB down. The speed limit will very shortly be going back up to 160 km per hour as we enter this next station here, which is Weiss Bentham. And we can accelerate towards 160 halfway through the platform, so I've just cut the power down. I've now increased the AFB setting, and we're now accelerating up towards 160 km per hour. I'm just going to go up to full power to do that. We will shortly be coming up on Ermitz station, and at Ermitz we've got 9.8 kilometers to go to Koblenz. A short distance after Ermitz station we're then going to get a warning for a speed limit reduction down to 90 kilometers per hour. Now that warning board is 1.5 kilometers, which is just under a mile from the speed limit itself, so we won't need to brake immediately, though I will idle the power at that point. I'm then going to apply the brakes as we pass the next signal between steps 2 and 3, and that should be about the right brake force to slow us down in time. So we have now just passed through Ermitz station, and I am now looking out for the 90 km per hour speed warning, which I believe is around 2 to 3 kilometers away. We're now passing the warning for the upcoming 90 km per hour speed limit, 1.5 kilometers from the speed limit itself. So the next signal, which is just coming up now, I believe that is the braking point for the upcoming speed limit. But I believe that's just a repeater or warning signal rather than an actual main signal that we just passed. So I may be braking slightly too early here, though I hope I'm not. Currently in a step 2 brake application, and will increase towards step 3 as we get closer to the next signal. In fact, I wasn't slowing down quite quick enough there, so I entered the 90 km/h speed limit at around 94 to 95, so there was just a slight mistake there. I should have braked to step 3 instead of step 2 at that signal there. I have now reduced the AFB setting to 90 km/h. The speed limit will shortly be going back up to 120 km/h. However, I see little point in accelerating as we are now entering Koblenz. We've got 2 more stations to pass through before we reach the main station here. We're now passing through Koblenz Lutzel station. We're now passing Koblenz Stadtmitte station. The signal ahead is a cautionary signal, so I've got to reset the PZB alarm here. I'm now going to apply the brakes to bring our speed down to below, I think it's 65 km/h is what I need to aim for initially. So I'm going to be slowing down further than that. As you can see, the main Koblenz station is coming up just ahead. The reason why we had a warning signal there is because I believe it's the signal at the end of the platform here at Koblenz is displaying a red aspect. So I am entering the platform fairly slowly. There are actually a couple of H signs here which are the stopping points. I just want to ensure that I'm going slow enough, as I'm not sure the exact position of the first H sign, and I know that in this train it's actually quite difficult to slow down quickly, even when you're travelling at a low speed. I can now see the first H sign coming up on the left hand side here, so I'm aiming to stop by there. And so here we are, arrival at Koblenz. Thank you very much for watching. I really do hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please don't forget that you can find me on Facebook for the latest channel updates, the link of which is in the description of this video. Also, please don't forget that I have put the link to the German signalling guide in the description in this video for those who maybe haven't seen it before. Once again, thank you for watching.